I'm Kennedy, 36 years old, and I grew up in a small suburban town in Oregon, where winters dragged on endlessly and summers were never quite long enough for me to forget what it felt like to be overlooked. From a very young age, I learned a truth no child should have to realize too soon. In my family, love wasn't distributed evenly. My sister, Savannah, 3 years older than me, was the center of my parents' universe. From her first birthday party to her high school graduation, every glance, every cheer was always directed at Savannah, as if she were a princess destined to make the world brighter. And me, I was the easy one, low maintenance, not a worry. Kennedy can handle herself was my mom's go-to line whenever I needed attention. Savannah was born knowing how to command a room. By the time she was 8, she was already on the school stage in a sparkling red dress, holding a microphone like a mini Hollywood star. My parents sat front row, clapping through tears. And me? I was behind the curtain, operating the lights. No name called, no compliments offered. Every time I tried to do something for myself, Savannah always found a way to make it hers. I vividly remember painting a watercolor landscape for a school-wide art competition in 4th grade. I spent 2 weeks working in my room, skipping my favorite cartoons to perfect every detail. But on the submission day, Savannah, then a 7th grader, borrowed it to show her friends. My mom said nothing, just laughed and told me she's only trying to help get your work noticed. I didn't know that helping meant stealing my effort and taking the praise for it. The unfairness didn't end in childhood. Throughout high school, Savannah racked up praise for her outstanding performance, though most of it came from my parents paying for tutors, private classes, and feeding her answers during tests. As for me, I had to teach myself, push through sleepless nights just to get a B+. When I said I wanted to apply to a college in Portland, my mom frowned. Why don't you stay home and help your sister at the bakery? Savannah's under a lot of pressure. Savannah never worked a full shift at the bakery. She always arrived late, left early, and never cleaned up. But my parents didn't see it, or chose not to. Meanwhile, I was always given the easy tasks like cleaning the entire kitchen, tracking inventory, or manning the register during chaotic holiday rushes. No one ever asked if I was tired. No one ever asked what my dreams were. I learned to stay silent, not because I was weak, but because I was too tired to fight for scraps of affection in that house. There was one time I snapped, when I was 16. Savannah took my personal essay and submitted it to a contest. She won first place. The piece was about my grandmother, the one person I loved most in the world. I knew every word was mine. When I confronted her, my mother looked at me and calmly said, "Your sister just borrowed your idea. Don't be so selfish, Kennedy." That was the moment I realized, in their eyes, I was just a shadow. A convenient one, low maintenance, easy to control, and not worth worrying about. I grew up in that silence, learning to bury everything. The less I said, the less I hurt. But they didn't know one thing. Even shadows know how to walk, how to think, and when necessary, how to turn. I kept quiet for 20 years. But everything started to change the day Savannah stood in the middle of a family party and said something no one expected. That same day, I quietly held something in my hand, something that would ensure she never forgot. The shadow she used to dismiss had stepped into the light. I left home the moment I turned 18. No farewell party, no words of advice. Just a duffel bag of old clothes, a few $100s I'd saved from dishwashing at the local diner, and an acceptance letter to a community college business program in Salem. I rented a small upstairs room in an old wooden house. That first winter was so cold I had to sleep in my coat. But I felt free. For the first time in my life, I had a space without my mother's constant criticism, my father's cold stares, or Savannah's shadow. I went to school during the day and worked at a cafe from 5 a.m. until noon, then a convenience store at night. Every dollar I earned had a purpose. While other students bought new phones or ordered takeout, I ate instant noodles and used an old Samsung phone with a cracked screen from 10th grade. I knew I couldn't afford to fail. There was no one to call for help, no safety net. When I was 22, I accidentally heard a podcast on sustainable business while mopping the store floor. The host talked about the lack of transparency in household goods, from dish rags to detergents. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in front of my old laptop, researching eco friendly materials, transparent supply chains, and the rising trend of drop shipping. 3 months later, I launched a small online shop called Willow and Pine, selling eco friendly household products: bamboo fiber cloths, bamboo toothbrushes, plastic free laundry bags. I did everything myself: designed the website, wrote product descriptions, handled orders, and responded to customer emails. I had no ad budget, only $25 to test my first Facebook ad. I didn't expect it to bring in 6 orders on the first day. Every cent I earned went back into the business. I spent my weekends writing blogs, making content, filming product videos with my phone propped up on 3 thick books. No one knew my name, but I learned how to make Google notice me. Within 12 months, I hit 6 figure revenue. 2 years later, Willow and Pine was mentioned in a Better Homes and Gardens article. By year 3, I was invited to speak on Morning Northwest as the young female founder leading the green lifestyle trend in the Pacific Northwest. Savannah knew, of course. My parents never shared any article I was featured in, but Savannah didn't miss a beat. True to her nature, she began boasting at family gatherings. My little sister is doing some cute stuff online, kind of adorable. When I signed a retail deal with an eco chain in Colorado, Savannah posted a photo from her kitchen suggesting a DIY dish soap recipe on Instagram with a caption, "Best creativity runs in the family." Each time, I reminded myself not to fall into that old cycle of comparison. But it was hard, especially when she lived as though I were just an extension of her life, not an independent person who had clawed her way to where she was. Savannah hadn't held a steady job in over a decade. She'd jumped from multi-level marketing, selling cosmetics online, real estate assistant, to meditative detox yoga instructor, changing careers faster than I could keep up with her apps. Every time we met, she said she was about to start something huge, getting investors soon, totally going to blow up. Last time, she showed up at a family party carrying a Balenciaga purse I knew was rented, talking about investing in luxury real estate. She bragged about a lakefront villa in Idaho she was probably buying if the bank approves the loan. I sat at the far end of the table, saying nothing. But when she turned to the crowd and said, "Pretty sure Kennedy's having a tough time right now, but she always tries her best," I gripped my glass so tightly the veins in my hand bulged. I knew it was coming. Sympathetic looks from distant relatives, subtle job suggestions, and that quiet smirk from Savannah as people began questioning the state of my business. But I wasn't afraid, because what Savannah didn't know was that 3 days earlier, I had put down a deposit on that exact lakefront house in Idaho she claimed she'd buy. And I didn't need a bank loan. I paid in full, in cash. She says I'm struggling. Let's see who really needs saving when the truth comes out. I still remember that bizarre moment during last year's Christmas party, when Savannah raised her wine glass in the middle of the living room, golden lights bouncing off the rented sequin dress she wore, and proudly declared in front of the whole extended family. If I hadn't encouraged Kennedy to follow her passion, who knows if she'd have dared to start her own business. The room erupted in applause. My dad nodded, my mom beamed. And I just sat there, poking at a cold piece of turkey on my plate to avoid reacting. Savannah never encouraged me to do anything. In fact, when I left home at 18, she was the first to say, "Well, good luck, because you'll be crawling back in no time." She never contributed an hour of work, never asked what I needed, never even understood what I was doing with my company. But she told the story as if she were the mastermind behind it all. Savannah's manipulation is subtle. She never outright claims credit. Instead, she plants vague bits like helped out, inspired, gave the first nudge. When I appeared on a local TV show to talk about green consumer trends, Savannah immediately posted a screenshot with the caption, "So proud of my sister. Remember that night we brainstormed her first brand idea?" We never brainstormed anything. That night, I was on the phone with a lawyer protecting my trademark from someone trying to steal it. Savannah had called to invite me to a bar. I declined. But somehow the story became two sisters pulling an all-nighter to launch a business. Everything she says comes with a believable gloss. She knows how to tell a story. She knows how to hit the emotional notes. She cries at the right moments, grabs someone's hand and says, "Family is everything." She's a master performer, and my entire family is her most loyal audience. I once tried telling my mom that what Savannah said wasn't true. She paused for a few seconds, then sighed. "Don't make a big deal out of it. You've already succeeded. What's the harm in letting your sister feel like she was part of it?" What's the harm? A lot. Because every time I stay silent, Savannah inches further into my life's territory. She talks about my company like it's a joint project. She's emailed journalists introducing herself as the unofficial communications advisor for Willow and Pine. Once I found a stack of business cards that read, "Savannah R. Strategic Vision Advisor, Willow and Pine. Founder's sister." I was shaking with rage. I emailed her, demanding she stop using my company's name for any personal activities. She replied with just one sentence. "Relax, Kennedy. I'm just helping you build your personal brand. No need to get so intense." And that's the problem. To Savannah, truth is just a tool, malleable, as long as it makes her look good. Even when I hosted a fundraiser for a local environmental organization with Willow and Pine as the main sponsor, Savannah showed up in a tight black dress, posing for reporters like she was a co-fender. When I introduced the organizing committee, she jumped in front of the mic, waving, "Hi everyone, I'm Kennedy's big sister, the one who's always been behind the scenes supporting her." I wanted to disappear right then, but I couldn't embarrass her in public, so I fake smiled and continued the event. But in my mind, boundary after boundary had been shattered. She wasn't just stealing credit for my success, she was turning it into social capital to craft her own image, successful, connected, essential. And the worst part, most people believed it. Even people close to me started sending messages like, "You two are such a talented pair," or "So lucky Kennedy had Savannah by her side from day one." Once, even my ex-boyfriend, who never liked Savannah, texted and asked, "Did you really start Willow and Pine all on your own?" I didn't respond, not because I doubted myself, but because I was tired. Tired of having to validate every part of my life. Tired of proving I built this. That there was no strategic advisor in the shadows. But then I realized, to make Savannah stop, silence wasn't enough. I needed a clear action. Not a fight, not an expose, but a truth so loud she couldn't possibly attach her name to it. I'll never forget that February morning. The sky in Oregon was gray and damp, mirroring my mood as I opened my inbox and read the subject line, "Partnership paused, vendor ceases operations." Our main partner in California, responsible for 70% of Willow and Pine's core products, had just announced immediate shutdown due to internal disputes and pulled investments. No prior notice, no transition period. All my next quarter orders canceled. Overnight, I lost my entire inventory plan for the spring campaign, one I had invested nearly $40,000 in for advertising, design, and logistics. I sat frozen in my home office, staring at the plummeting stock report. My phone rang nonstop with customers demanding updates. On social media, a few negative reviews began popping up, calling Willow and Pine unprofessional, delayed, and lacking transparency. My heart pounded, my throat tightened. I knew one wrong move and nearly a decade of work could fall apart. I immediately contacted my lawyer, financial advisor, and marketing team. We met urgently for 3 straight days to figure out loss mitigation, shift the supply chain, and control the damage. My attorney recommended preparing a contingency legal file, worst-case scenario planning, protecting personal assets, evaluating Chapter 11 if things spiraled. I nodded, not because I believed we'd go bankrupt, but because I had to be ready for every outcome. That file in a gray folder was placed in the locked drawer of my home office. I thought I was being careful, but I forgot one thing. Savannah had a key. Not because I trusted her, but 3 years ago, after a car accident left me with a wrist injury, she came to house sit for a week. I told myself I'd change the locks afterward, but work got hectic and I let it slip. She kept a copy and would randomly drop by with excuses like dropping off something from mom or borrowing a self help book. The next week, while I was in Portland meeting a potential supplier, Savannah texted me. You left some file on your desk. I opened it by accident, thought it was PR material. My stomach dropped. I knew she was lying. No one accidentally opens a folder stamped in red, confidential legal counsel only, and reads 5 pages of bankruptcy planning thinking it's public relations. I texted back simply, "Don't touch my stuff again." She didn't reply. I thought that would be the end of it. I was too naive. 3 weeks later, at my dad's 60th birthday party, held at a cozy Italian restaurant in Eugene, Savannah showed up late, as usual, in a white blazer and blazing red heels. But what chilled me was the look of pity from relatives as I walked in. My cousin Delia hesitated before asking, "Are you doing okay? I heard something serious happened with the company?" I kept a polite smile. Business always has its ups and downs, nothing too serious. But no one looked at me like someone handling things. They looked at me like a victim or a failure, in denial. While we were cutting the birthday cake, Savannah raised her glass and said, "We're so lucky to have family together. Even if someone among us is going through tough times, like Kennedy, there are always open arms. I just want you to know, you can move in with me anytime." The air turned heavy. My parents glanced at me. A few relatives sighed and nodded. I froze. No one at that party knew I had just signed a preliminary deal with a supplier in Montana, a more reliable and efficient partner. No one knew I had secured funding from an angel investor in Seattle, and no one knew I had paid off my short-term loan in just 26 days. But Savannah knew just enough to spin the story, just enough truth to make it believable, and she delivered it with such charm, sweetness, and public concern. Officially worried about her sister, in reality framing me as the underdog so she could shine as the savior. I didn't clap back. Not at the party. Not in the restaurant. I just looked at her, lifted my glass and smiled. A calm, steady smile that made Savannah pause for a split second. Because in my purse that evening, along with my car keys, lipstick, and wallet, was something else. Finalized purchase agreement, and the seller's address? The lakefront timber villa in Coeur d'Alene. What Savannah once called her life's dream. The home she swore she'd buy once her career took off. Our family reunion that year was held at Aunt Monica's beachside villa in Cannon Beach. She's always been generous. Every early summer, she invites the whole extended family for a long weekend. This year was record-breaking. Over 40 people came from all over the state, bringing barbecue, snacks, folding chairs, and a flood of aimless small talk. I arrived a little late because I had a Zoom call that morning with our partner in Montana. As soon as I parked, I noticed a few relatives glancing at me, quick looks that felt like assessments. Their eyes didn't hold the usual warmth. It felt more like pity. I stepped into the backyard, where everyone was gathered around the big dining table. The air was filled with laughter, the smell of smoked meat and cherry pie, but something felt off. Like I'd walked into a room where people had just been talking about me and hadn't switched topics fast enough. I had just placed my homemade salad on the table when Mom walked over, worry written all over her face. "Are you okay?" I heard a few things from Savannah. My heart skipped a beat. I took a deep breath. "I'm okay. More than okay." She nodded slightly, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. Then Savannah appeared, as if on cue. She wore a beige maxi dress, her hair in soft, bouncy waves, holding a glass of white wine. She stepped up the back patio stairs, gently clapping just loud enough to get everyone's attention. "And hey everyone, just a quick moment please, I have something to share. A little family update. The backyard quieted. Aunt Monica turned off the music. Uncle Victor set his beer down. I froze in place, a chill running down my spine. You all know, Savannah began, her tone light like she was sharing a celebrity gossip. Kennedy is a true fighter. She's worked so hard to build Willow and Pine. I'm so proud of her, but with that pressure, she's recently faced some serious financial trouble. Whispers spread like waves. I saw Aunt Beth lean over and whisper to her husband. A younger cousin furrowed their brows at me. Savannah continued like she had rehearsed every word. No one wants to admit they're struggling, especially someone as independent as Kennedy, but I think we're family, and families shouldn't keep important things from each other. She's working with an attorney to prepare for bankruptcy. I only found out because I accidentally saw part of the paperwork and I verified it. A freezing silence fell over the summer air. I could hear little Ruby drop her spoon on the floor. Even though Kennedy didn't want anyone to know, she continued, her voice fake trembling, I just couldn't stay quiet. I offered to let her move in with me for a while to help cut costs. And I've reached out to a few industry friends to help her find a job, something with less pressure, more stability. Her voice was sugar-coated, but every word landed like a dagger in my back. My throat tightened and my hands gripped the plate so hard my knuckles turned white. A slow-burning fury rose inside me, not because she was completely wrong. I did have a contingency file, but because she turned it into an emotional performance, casting me as the tragic lead in her carefully crafted pity story. To the entire family, I'd been labeled the failed little sister in need of rescue, with a kind-hearted big sister stepping in. She even turned to me with that loving look. Kennedy, I know you don't like asking for help, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. We're family. I couldn't believe it, not because she was humiliating me, but because for the first time I realized Savannah didn't just want credit for my success. She wanted to own my failure, too, and turn it into part of her victory. I took a deep breath. There was no anger left in me now, just a cold, clear certainty. I stepped forward, gently touched Savannah's shoulder, and smiled. Thank you for sharing. The backyard exhaled like they had just finished watching the climax of a movie. The morning after the family reunion, I woke up earlier than usual. The sky was foggy, and the ocean at Cannon Beach was still blurred behind a veil of white mist. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat on the second-floor balcony of the Airbnb I had booked. Privately, not at the family's lodging like everyone assumed. Last night's performance still lingered in my mind like an oil stain, but today would be different. I checked the folder in my bag. Signed and notarized purchase contract, proof of wire transfer from the account of Willow and Pine Capital Holdings, LLC, and finally, the key handover agreement signed by the seller. I didn't need to say a word at the reunion, because my response had already been arranged. Quiet, final, and irreversible. At 10:30 a.m., I sent Savannah a message. Meet me at 1 o'clock at 1749 Echo Pine Lane. Don't be late. She replied in less than a minute. What is that place? What's going on? Are you okay? I just texted back, just come. I knew she would show up. Echo Pine Lane wasn't unfamiliar to Savannah. It was the lakeside neighborhood where her dream cabin sat. The one she'd mentioned at every reunion, birthday party, even when tipsy. She once told my mom, if I ever owned that place, I wouldn't need anything else in life. A week ago, the house came back on the market after the previous owners filed for divorce. Savannah knew it was her who reposted the listing link to her Instagram story with the caption, "Why is life so cruel?" What she didn't know was that while she was lamenting, I was sitting across from the realtor by the lake, writing the deposit check. At 12:45, I arrived at Echo Pine, the two-story cabin tilted along the slope facing the vast lake, surrounded by pine trees and crisp air tinged with the scent of fresh timber. I had brought a fresh pot of coffee, 2 ceramic mugs, and sat on the wooden bench on the porch, waiting. At 1:10 p.m., Savannah's familiar red Mercedes pulled up to the gravel roadside. She stepped out wearing sunglasses, a knee-length coat, and a Prada purse tucked under her arm, like she was arriving at an open house. She looked around, clearly startled. Kennedy? This is who gave you this address? I pointed at the coffee mug beside me. Sit down, I have something to tell you. She hesitated, took off her sunglasses, then sat down, right in the spot where 3 years ago she once posed for a photo with the caption, "Someday, this view will be mine." I took a sip of coffee and said slowly, "You know, I heard everything you said last night, every word." Savannah gave a tight smile. "I was just trying to help. You know I worry about you." I looked her straight in the eye. "I'm not bankrupt, never was." Her expression shifted in an instant, a flicker of doubt, then a pause like she'd just stepped off a ledge. "But I saw documents in your file. Contingency file, legal backup, never filed." Silence. For the first time in years, Savannah didn't know how to respond. I stood up, pulled a set of keys from my pocket, and placed them on the wooden table between our mugs. "Do you remember your dream of owning a lake house?" She blinked. "What have you been saying for 3 years about this place? That one day you'd host your wedding here? That this is where your soul belongs?" Savannah slowly looked around as if trying to confirm every detail again. She whispered, "Don't tell me." I nodded. "This house is mine, Savannah. I signed the papers yesterday morning. Your name isn't on a single page. No loans, no mortgage." Her mouth opened as if to protest, but no sound came out. I continued, my voice calm. "I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was scared, but because I wanted to see if you'd stop. You didn't. You made up a pity play in front of the whole family, just to cast yourself as the hero." Savannah looked down. For the first time, her face didn't show confidence or performative charm. It showed real confusion. I poured more coffee into her cup, then stood up. "Stay here. Take a good look. This is the price of writing your own script and assuming everyone else will forever play a supporting role." And then I stepped inside, leaving my sister on the porch of the very dream house she had once claimed, unsure of what she was feeling. But for me, for the first time, justice smelled like pine wood and dark roast coffee. I sat on the living room windowsill, sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains, casting warm streaks across the wooden floor. Outside, the lake was still as glass, reflecting the towering pines and savanna. Still sitting motionless on the wooden bench, hands wrapped around a now cold cup of coffee. 17 minutes passed, not a word, not a single movement from her, except for the way she clutched her purse strap like it was the last thread of pride she had left. Finally, she stood and walked into the house, no longer with the proud stride she always carried. No heels clicking, no door slamming, just a faint sigh. Savannah sat in the chair across from me. She didn't look at me. "Do you hate me that much?" As I tilted my head, "It's not hate. I'm tired." She let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, you probably are. Tired of carrying your own success, tired of fighting back against the sister who always hijacked it." I stayed quiet, let her speak. For the first time, Savannah wore no mask. "I'm not as rich as people think. My credit card's been frozen 3 times in 2 months. That Mercedes outside? Month-to-month rental. The Prada bag? A fake second hand I brought just to not look behind the curve." I paused. I had suspected, but hearing it from Savannah herself still caught me off guard. "My apartment," she continued, "is 3 months behind on rent. The landlord threatening legal action. That interior design studio job? Trial period ended. I didn't tell Mom. She'd lose it, and Dad, the moment he hears another job loss, he just goes silent. Like I'm the family stain." Savannah covered her face with one hand, her voice cracked. "And you? Always composed, always with a plan, always the one everyone trusts. Where do I fit in that picture? A 39-year-old big sister, dressed sharp but can't afford gas?" I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad. "You don't have to compete with me." "I know." Her voice broke dry and raw. "But I don't know any other way to be noticed. You're too good. Standing next to you makes me feel pathetic. So I retell the story in a way where I don't disappear." I poured more coffee, sliding the cup toward her. "And last night's performance?" She lowered her head and nodded slightly. "Awful. And I know it I leaned back against the wall, a small weight lifting. For the first time, Savannah wasn't blaming anyone. She wasn't playing victim. She was facing it. I let out a long breath, then said, "This house has 5 bedrooms. I only use one." Savannah looked up, stunned. "You're not throwing me out?" I grew up with a sister who always thought I was the kid stealing her toys. I don't want to repeat that cycle, but I also don't want to cut ties completely. So, I have a proposal. I listed them clearly. OM. You move in for a while to get your finances in order. Not for free, but I'll help manage the costs. 2. You tell the family the truth about the lies you told. 3. No more using my name, my company, or any of my accomplishments as social currency. Savannah swallowed hard, nodding. And you? You really want to help me? Not because you're my sister, but because if we don't stop now, there won't be anything left worth calling sisters. For the first time, Savannah looked at me as an equal, not as the shadow to outshine. She reached out, hesitated for a few seconds, then placed her hand on the table. I put mine over hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. She said, "Deal," I replied. Outside, a soft breeze rippled across the lake, sending small waves across its surface. I didn't know if the future between me and Savannah would be smooth. But at least this time we were starting from something real. No scripts, no performances, no rivalry. Like 2 women, exhausted from the roles they had tried too hard to play. 2 weeks after that conversation on the lakefront porch, Savannah and I sent out a joint message in the family group chat. This Sunday, 3 p.m. Echo Pine Lane. We hope everyone can make it. There's something important we'd like to share. No one asked questions, but I knew for sure they were buzzing behind the scenes. Everyone expected drama part 2, or at least another round of airing dirty laundry. What they didn't know was that this time, the stage wasn't set for shock. It was set for truth. That afternoon, the backyard of the lake house buzzed with chatter, just like our old family gatherings. My parents arrived first, carrying a tray of fresh-baked pastries and a pot of lavender. Aunt Monica brought out her best crystal glasses, the ones she'd stored away for years. Even Uncle Robert, the family's ever-numeral party, showed up in his old khaki jacket, warm as ever in demeanor. I arranged the chairs around the deck, prepared lemonade, wine, and a few simple appetizers. Savannah, for the first time in recent memory, wasn't late. She wore a soft teal linen dress, no flashy accessories, no red lipstick, no designer bag. Just herself, sincere, a little nervous. At exactly 3:15 p.m., she stepped up onto the porch steps. No one had to call for quiet. Everyone could sense the weight in the air. The laughter slowly faded. Savannah took a deep breath and spoke. "Thank you all for being here today. I know some of you might be thinking this is yet another announcement from me, but this time, there's no script, no spin, just an apology." No one responded right away, a few blinks. My mom placed her hand on my dad's shoulder and gave it a soft squeeze. At the Cannon Beach gathering, I stood in front of everyone and said Kennedy was going bankrupt. I didn't do that to help her. I did it because I was jealous, in crisis, drowning in my own failure, and I needed a story to make myself look kinder, more necessary. A deep sigh broke the silence. I took documents from Kennedy's house without permission. I misread them, misunderstood them, and worse, I deliberately spread that narrative to turn the situation to my advantage. I made myself the hero, when in truth I was the one who needed saving. She looked over at me. I gave a small nod. "Go on." My sister was not going bankrupt. She never was. Kennedy quietly turned things around without tears, without blame, and most importantly, she bought this house, the very one I once called my dream. When I found out, I was shocked. Not because I lost the house, but because I lost the illusion that I was always ahead of her. She paused. The yard was completely silent. Kennedy didn't expose me. She gave me time to make things right, and today I'm here to do exactly that. Savannah bowed her head deeply. "I'm sorry, Kennedy. And I'm sorry to all of you for dragging everyone into a performance no one deserved to witness. My hands trembled slightly, but I stood, walked to her side, and did something I didn't think I'd be able to do so easily. I hugged her. It wasn't performative, it wasn't forced, just two people, long trapped in roles, finally learning how to connect without scripts. The whole yard let out a collective breath. My mom wiped away tears. Aunt Beth ran over and wrapped us both in a hug, and Uncle Robert just smiled softly. Finally. The rest of the evening drifted by like a lake breeze. No one mentioned bankruptcy. No one talked about titles or achievements. Instead, we baked together, told old stories, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the dependable independent child or the successful younger sister. I was just Kennedy, a part of a flawed but slowly healing family. That night, after most had gone home, Savannah stood by the railing, gazing out at the moonlit lake. "It's so quiet here." I stood next to her. "Yeah, but it's the good kind of quiet, not the kind that comes from hurt." She turned to me with a soft smile. "You know, you didn't just reclaim my dream, you helped me wake up from it." I didn't say anything, just gently squeezed her shoulder. That lake house, once a symbol of endless rivalry, had become the place of a new beginning. Not because it was beautiful or expensive, but because for the first time ever it witnessed something no other place had. My sister and me on the same side. Not to compete, but to move forward, together. My story with Savannah wasn't just about a house or a quiet act of revenge. It was a journey of healing between two sisters once trapped in jealousy and silence. I've learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to win the argument, but to create space for the truth to speak. No relationship is perfect, but when we dare to face it, to forgive, and to begin again, even the deepest cracks can become the places where light breaks through. What do you think about Kennedy and Savannah's journey? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more real-life family stories full of heart,